In this episode of the What Made You podcast, I had the pleasure of interviewing Michael Henderson. Michael is a man of effort with a pursuit for never-ending self-development. In this episode, we talk almost exclusively about continuing to evolve into the better version of yourself. The three key themes were environment, networking, and ownership. Man, I love how Mike really lives everything that he says. His word is kind of like his own personal rule of law. I remember when he moved to St. Louis and he hit me up and he said, let's link up. And typically when people say that, heck, over the past 7 years of me being here, nobody's ever actually done it. But he was actually accountable for his word. And he kept on reaching out until we set up a date and grabbed lunch together. What you should get out of this podcast is actionable steps and tips that will take anyone to the next level. And hopefully it will inspire you to get out of your comfort zone and enjoy life to the fullest. Without further ado, tap in and listen to this episode of the What Made You podcast with Michael Henderson. Yo, Mike, thank you for coming on to the podcast. And I'm really excited about having you on because I know that you are a higher level thinker. So I know the listeners are definitely going to get a lot from you. And I think that, you know, coming from the college background, coming from, I assume, not a place of massive wealth, but wanting to generate that. I think a lot of people will be able to feel you in that, right? I think we have a lot of listeners that want to hear that kind of story and what made you get to where you're at. So today we have Michael Henderson. So welcome, Mike.
Appreciate the opportunity for being on the podcast, man.
Dope. Hey, man, so I'm just going to start you off. You know, let's just jump right into this, man. So if you don't mind giving me like a 2 to 3 minute quick rundown of where you came from. So just starting from birth to current place. And yeah, I'll let you run that through there.
No, definitely. So I'm from Bolingbrook, Illinois. So I was born and raised out that way. Pretty much I grew up in that same system for our school, elementary school, middle school to high school. And then as I transitioned from high school, I went to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. And that's kind of like where I kind of got a lot of my kind of, I guess, changes as a man, as a person, you know, kind of as I'm introducing myself into the, as we call it, corporate America lifestyle. And that's in Carbondale, Illinois, Southern Illinois University. And from that change, I kind of went into Target. I had an internship that I was given through the College of Business there. And I had an internship for Target. So I kind of developed my early career within Target. And from there, I've been at various companies, Bye Bye Baby, Airmark, Aldi, and then now at Circle K. So I kind of have developed myself throughout the management background because I've always been in management to now being at a district manager position. So really just developing myself within that. And as far as those stages, I've pretty much always been in the Chicagoland market. Now I'm in the St. Louis market. So I'm obviously building my network out this way and kind of really locking in, you know. I think a lot of times we go through transitions and we got to kind of find out what's our next. So I think right now I'm kind of finding my next more so within the business world, of the corporate side, but then also the world like entrepreneurship side, right? Kind of find out how I can expand myself to the next level and really get to where I want to be at in life.
Hey, and you also, as we mentioned earlier, you do a little bit of nonprofit as well. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
So during the time frame when I was in college, we came back during our senior year of college. Myself, my best friend Nate, and a few other people pretty much came together, and we were trying to build we just want to give back, right? You know, we felt like that we came from decent scenario situations that we want to be able to give back to less fortunate. And I think a lot of times that when people have the opportunity to pour into you, right, whatever level that may be at, you want to somewhat give that back, right? To be able to pour into someone else to build them up to wherever their next is, right? Everyone's next is different. So whatever their next may be, you want to build into that. So I think the opportunity to be able to really come back to the city of Chicago and kind of really build upon less fortunate communities was where our vision was. So we always have an event at the end of the year in December where we would try to give less fortunate people a great holiday season to give them back gifts, Maybe it's like different things they can utilize around the house, and then obviously something to prepare for their Christmas dinner. So that's what my organization group does, usually during the holiday season, to be able to benefit less fortunate families or
Yeah,
people that's
what's
just
that
going through
called
hard
as well?
times.
If you don't
Infinite
mind.
Hands Charity.
Yeah, shameless plug. Do it. Give it out right here. So yeah, go ahead. Tell the website, Instagram, give it all right here,
Yep. So
so
Infinite
people
Hands
know about it.
Charity is the Instagram. You can find us at Infinite Hands, www.infinitehandscharity.com. We'll have pretty much a big event this year at the end of the year. Probably going to be in the Harvey area of Illinois. We'll probably be doing an event there. And then past that point, we're actually kind of getting some things together to be able to build a school in Africa in 2025. So yeah, so we're pushing forth to there to be able to do that.
Jeez.
So looking forward to my team as we come together to be able to do that.
Yo, big thinking.
Big thinking
Big
as well.
thinking.
Yep.
Ooh. Okay. I want to. There's a lot we can go through here. I do want to start in the kind of the beginning because I feel like you just ripped through this. Birth to through high school. Let's just start with this. What kind of household did you grow up with?
So I grew up with a two-parent household. So I was fortunate to have both my parent and my mom and my dad in the same house. So I grew up with a one sibling. I think I grew up in a household that was more so spiritual. So obviously I had a foundation of going to church, building a relationship with God. So it was great to kind of have that foundation. I think everyone has
Mm.
to have something to stand upon. Throughout those years, I think that my folks put me in a lot of things that were kind of in the mindset to kind of build upon your next, right? So I was in a lot of organizations, TSTM, AXO, that was ran by the NAACP, that kind of put me in positions to kind of start
Wow.
working on my craft at an early age. So they had, singing, entrepreneurship. You had people that did like engineering projects, so different projects that at a young age that we were kind of tapping
Jeez.
into to be able to build upon our next level of what we wanted to get into, right? So in a way, it
Wow.
kind of was like a small snippet of like trying to get involved into what you want to do in the future to see if it's even for you. If it wasn't for you, then you can do something different. So for me, I had did photography and entrepreneurship. Photography I wasn't really that good at, but entrepreneurship I found more of a liking in, right? So I was able to
Okay.
build upon that and kind of grow my horizon mentally on what was next for me.
That's awesome. What did you do anything in high school with that?
So when I was in high school, I had done pretty much my whole business plan was around a soul food restaurant. So I was called Michael Soul Food Restaurant. So I really wanted to have a soul food
You
restaurant.
cook
I had a
too?
commercial for it and everything like that, building upon that. And then during my senior year, I was part of this Business Professionals of America. So pretty much I had won a gold medal with them and as well as with AXO. So that those are two things that I went on trips for and had competed at the national level. So it was a great opportunity to be able to kind of be involved with that at a younger age, kind of formulate something that wasn't necessarily real, but something that could be built upon for your next journey in life.
Dope. I'm gonna write that down because you mentioned something that I think a lot of people don't get into is those uh, things that take you out of your normal space. Like
For sure.
you're talking about, you said nationals. I bet most people don't even know what the heck you're even talking about when you say something like that. Like you were in a group, a form of program, kind of. I
Yep.
would assume kind of like Skills USA.
Yep.
I'm
Same
trying to think of other
concept.
ones that are that give the same that grasp. So you probably made a business plan. You brought it forth. You probably did a sales pitch, maybe even, or a
Definitely.
business pitch, and
Hmm.
then you probably took that to the next level. Okay, good. That's a lot of people don't get that opportunity. Also, in my school, I've noticed a lot of people don't take the opportunity.
Yeah, yeah.
So, did you choose to do that, or did your parents kind of like, no, you're gonna do this no matter what?
So it's a choice and an opportunity, right? So it's a choice to like do it. But I think like we find a lot of times in our school system, we have a lot of kids that are good at different things, right? So either one, that the resources aren't there to have the opportunity, or past that point, uh, they're not given the opportunity. So I think a lot of times kids do want it for things they like, right? So that was something I was interested in, right?
Mm,
I think another thing is, we talk about environment. I think it's a big word that people skip over. Environment controls a lot, right? We see kids in, the Chicagoland area where I'm from that are doing different things that may not be to liking of where they're going or where people would like to see them where they're going, but their environment controls them. We're not necessarily talking about the household. We're talking about the environment of the friends, people you hang out with, school, different things. So the depending on where your environment is, that's where you're going to lead to. So, we said the people you hang around kind of what you're probably going to be, right? So I think a lot of times in my environment, I hung around people that were doing different things. So I had a best friend where I grew up. His name was Trevor, and Brittany, who I grew up with. Those are two different people that I tapped into. I was able to build upon of what they were going to, right? So we had like-minded minds to be able to want to be in business. So those were some things that we wanted to do, so we built upon that. So obviously our parents gave us the opportunity or put us in that mix, but we were able to kind of take it a step forward because we really wanted to do it.
Yeah, so and so important. I hope nobody missed that. You had like a little network per se.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You had somebody that was challenging you, although friendly, of course, but it was an accountability group in essence too, right? Like you weren't gonna like miss out on that because now you're missing out on your friend time, right? It sounds like, yeah. So you guys were all together, which is fantastic. So just where is Bolingbrook at? Like, can you get kind of just for those that don't know, understand the grasp of Illinois?
It's in the west suburbs of Chicago, so it's maybe about 30 minutes outside of Chicago. So it's in the west suburbs of Chicago. So that's where it is, kind of like on the outskirts.
Did you stay there the whole childhood?
So majority of my childhood I did. I'm from the south. I'm originally from the south suburbs of Chicago, so that's more so like probably about another 20 minutes out from the city of Chicago. So that's Chicago Heights, Fort Heights, that area. That's where I'm originally from. Then I transitioned out to Chicagoland area, where I really had majority of my bringing up.
Okay, and so whenever you were transitioning into college, right? So I assume you had scholarships. You're talking about nationals. You're talking about competing. Typically, that gives scholarships. Was that do I assume correct?
No, I did not have the opportunity to have a scholarship, so that was not given to me. Those competitions were just things that obviously that you could win a medal for, but it was not granted to you a scholarship or anything like that. So that's not something that I was given. I was actually, to be honest, was not. I had good grades in college, but I was not actually the best test taker. So my ACT, I think, was an 18. So I was not
better than me.
I was so I was not a good test taker. So they called me more so an underdog, right? So I'm not the typical person that would possibly go to college at a good college or at a college and be accepted into a college of business, which I was not when I first went to SIU. I did not actually get accepted into a college of business. I actually had an opportunity where I had to go into a program I was accepted upon because of my ACT score. And I think it's really like, you look back at that in life and it's kind of like, hey, that's like a hurdle and a challenge that you have to get over at a younger age to be able to move forward, right?
Yep.
It's the level that was given that you want to get at.
That's beautiful. So you actually went to SIU the whole time. Like there was no, you didn't do like junior college or community college?
No, I went straight to SIU for all my 4 years.
Can you tell everybody what SIU is?
Yeah, so SIU is Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. It's probably about 6 hours away from Chicagoland area.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, we that's how we met. Yep. I'm from that area, but people who listen may not know what that is. Okay, so you started off, you said, as an underdog. Okay, but you've already been competing. You've already been doing this almost without some form of compensation, even.
Definitely.
So it sounds like this is almost. You were almost guaranteed to win this. Like you were like, hey, I've been in challenges before. Now I'm gonna get in here. I'm gonna do the classes that I need to, right? So you had to take some probably like English prep class or reading class. Mm-hmm. I know exactly. Man, those classes were so stupid to me too. It's so funny just because you get a bad grade or you wanted to make.
Yeah, you had to. I mean, it's crazy that test will define of who you are as a person. And the thing is, the bigger picture is like. People can allow that to define them, right? That's where the mental battle and the mental challenge comes in, even at a younger age, right? To decide, like, who do you want to be and who are you going to decide what bucket people are going to put you.
I surely did not take the ACT serious. Did you take it serious?
I feel like I somewhat did, somewhat didn't. I don't think I ever really been a good test taker, but I don't think that, like, I took it as serious as I probably should have. But I don't ever think I was a good test taker.
Okay.
I've always been more so.
Did you do a prep for it? Did you guys prep?
Nah, not really. I mean, I kind of, the stuff that they give you to kind of prep for it or something like that, but nothing heavy or serious.
Gotcha. Okay, so we get to SIU. So what I'm hearing already is that you already have this, what we call the dog mentality. So I'm kind of already seeing that, right? Like you have that in you. So when you get to SIU, you're already using that networking. Is that the first thing that you did when you got there, or were you like, I'm trying to better my life? What do you think is your first intentions at college?
So I have to go back a little bit. So
Go for it.
when I was in high school, I went to a business camp at SIU my junior year of high school. So it was an opportunity that we were given through a network of people that we just knew that we were given. This guy, his name was Mr. Haywood. He was in the College of Business. A lot of people know him. He was in the minority affairs area. So he looked out for a lot of minority people, obviously, across the board, if you're a minority, and gave us opportunity. So myself with Brittany Grayhouse and Nate Randall, we had went down there to a camp. And that's kind of like how I met Nate Randall. And Brittany, me and her knew each other since birth. So we were able to kind of like connect all during that camp. So the reason I bring up that camp was because it kind of broke down us all the areas of college business. You have obviously business management, marketing, finance, and accounting. So they gave us a rough draft of all that. Gave us the Southern Illinois hospitality, kind of the tour of the city, tour of the school, just a good understanding of what we could get into if we were going to go there. So we ended up going there all three together. And the thing is when I go
Was
back
it
to
kind of planned? I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump.
oh,
Did you guys plan that out?
plan. It just fell
Or was
that
you
way.
guys like, hey, we got accepted
It
and we
just
should
felt
do it?
well. It felt that way that we all went on a business camp, but it did not fall that way we were going to go. Brittany was possibly going to go to U of I. I wanted to go to U of I because we had another best friend that was going that way, and then Nate, he was going to be going to Memphis. We all ended up going to SIU.
Wow.
So during that transition, it just fell that way, and we all ended up going there. Now the thing is this, and this is why I brought that environment. It's very important who's in your environment because that is what's going to push you to your next level, right? In my environment, as Nate and Brittany, they were challenging myself and themselves to get straight A's first semester. Like they were like, hey, man, I'm going to get straight A's, right? I'm doing anything and everything I can, right? To put myself in position to get that, right? And I think that's
They already
where,
had that
like,
mindset. That's cool.
that's where the
And you were in
healthy
that
competition
environment.
comes around, right? Because the
Yes,
thing is,
yes.
like, how me and you just talked about, we didn't really take the ACC serious, right? I could have went that first semester and just like, hey, I'm in college, I'm gonna enjoy it, I don't care about all that. Not saying
Right.
you can't do both, because these people had a balance. Still was kicking it, but also found a balance. Like, hey, look, I'm not gonna play around about this because they knew, and this is where you gotta prepare yourself to be around your environment. They knew as you grow in college, it just gets harder. It doesn't get easier. This is the easiest way it is, right? Those one-on-one classes is really where it's at. When you get to 300, 400, it's more challenging. So it's like, take the opportunity to build a good foundation now, because when I struggle later, it won't judge my GPA as much, right?
Right.
So that was the environment I had when I first came in. And I think that was a challenge I had to prepare myself to like get better grades in that scenario.
And that just kind of pushed you through. That's super dope. I'm glad you had that mindset coming in, because that's a struggle, I think, for most people. Because let's say that you are a minority, a struggle minority, you're in poverty. You finally get out of it, right? So, and I think a lot of people, that I even noticed this whenever I was going, is that you went down there, you're finally out of it, but you brought it with you. You know what I'm saying? Like you brought that, oh, I'm from this. You don't know who I am. But you also kept that same attitude with your grades, with your work, with your study, with your habits, and that's a beautiful thing that you talked about in environment. So, if I could be fair, is there a way to get out of that? Do you think that people could just join you and Brittany and Nate? Were you welcoming in that way, that you could bring somebody along with you like that?
Man, like that's where networking started. You see somebody else that could benefit you, because it's not like we're good at everything. So it may be
Mm-hmm.
some type of challenge or obstacle you have in college. You say, hey, look, he's good at that. I'm good at this. We can partner up because I can benefit him and he can benefit me. That was a small level of network. I'm learning how to network at a smaller age that really didn't count for like big dollars or anything, just counted for a grade or just like to see what you may benefit of, right? And then the thing is, like, now you look back at life of college or even high school, whatever, you see like how networking at a younger age can benefit you later because you put
Yes,
that foundation in earlier that you was building those relationships, do small stuff, right? It didn't even
absolutely.
matter what you were building on. Now we're building on bigger things, right? Now it's like, hey, this heavy money on the table, this generational wealth on the table now, right? But
Right.
before it was just like, hey, this is just to get a next grade or maybe to get entry into something or whatever it may be. But now at this level is a whole other ball.
That's super dope. That's super dope. So you graduated. What degree did you get?
So I ended up doing business management. So I had graduated business management degree from SIU in Carbondale.
Okay. And what was your first job straight out of
My
that?
first job, I had an internship my senior year of college with Target. So
Okay.
when I had an internship with Target, I had started on with them right after the internship, and that was a challenging atmosphere because you're like young, going into like you feel like you're filling big shoes. You're getting keys to the store and saying, "Hey, you run this, right?" And it's
You were
challenging
the
because
manager?
yeah. So
Straight up manager, not assistant manager, like the manager.
the manager.
Yo.
So,
Okay.
so, so you're getting keys to a
Tell us
building.
about
You're
it.
you're trying to like challenge yourself to be the best version of yourself, but also too, you're thinking like, I'm 21 years old. I'm managing people who are my parents' age, right? So that's the first obstacle I had, and not to put the spiritual twist on it, but you never know what God is putting you in to for your future, right? Because
Yep.
that laying a foundation. But you have a choice at that point. I can go to work every day and say, "Hey, look, I'm gonna overcome this. I'm gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out, see what it is."
Hmm.
Or, hey, I'm not gonna take the opportunity. I'm just gonna leave it alone because it's too big for me. And that's where you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, "Hey, who do you want to be?" And it's a challenge, right? It's a
Yeah.
challenge because you have to go in there and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to overcome this and handle this," but it's very challenging because the obstacles against you does not look good because you're dealing with things that are more so discouraging. Because once again, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the background. You're telling yourself, "Man, I may not be qualified for this," right? And then past that point, you're dealing with people that are your parents' age who don't think you know what you're talking about.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a challenge in itself at that point in time of like where you want to move, right? And that's where I go back to the environment once again. Whoever you put yourself around, even right now in life, wherever anybody's at, your environment is going to control how you think, what you do, how you get motivated, how you eat,
Yeah.
sleep, all that type of things, right? Because they're going to challenge your environment's going to challenge you without even saying anything. If you see somebody around you that's close enough to you, that's doing something either it's positive or negative, you're gonna more so tap into that because that's what your environment says to do.
Yep. So, not to be materialistic or not to get into your business too much. What does it look like? If somebody's coming straight out of college, what should they expect of a pay at that place or that
Man, so
position?
things change over time, right?
Hmm.
So what I was making at that time was like clearly about 60K, right?
Okay.
So at that point in time, straight out of college, that wasn't bad for where I was at that moment in
No,
time,
it's
right?
pretty good.
Pretty
No,
good,
it's
right?
very good. Very good. Yes.
Most people can come out on a minimum wage situation. Most people can come out with like you know, maybe 30, 40, 50K, you're not for sure. Everyone's different, right? Everyone's at different levels, right?
Yep.
So, but that's the thing. You can't take where your level is at because it doesn't mean where your next is, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
things
Right.
always change in life. It can change in a split second, whether good or bad or indifferent, right? I mean, it
Was it
can
good
change.
for you? Now that you're talking about that, do you think that taking that position was good for you?
I say yes and no. And the first reason I say no is because I did not counter offer it. I just took it because I was so happy to get money. And this is where, like, being young or just being in life, you don't always challenge what someone's giving you. And I think you
Hmm.
always should do your research and challenge instead of jumping at whatever's given to you. That's just life in general. Everything sounds good. Anything
Yep.
that's in a positive direction always sounds good. But is it good for you in your situation at that time? And that's what you
So
got to
was it
ask yourself.
just the money, or did you just not expect that situation, or like?
Just the money and the opportunity. Is that what I need to do? Right? If I'm being honest with you, I look at myself back 10 years ago, and now I'm coming up on my 31st year, and I say, man, what if I just said forget all that and go be an entrepreneur? I have a degree at the point. Bet on myself at that point, right? Now you got people who betting on themselves. Not saying everybody's like this. I hope if someone's younger is looking at this, bet on yourself. You got people who are like 30 plus years old with a family, wife, and kids trying to bet on themselves. Can't bet fully on yourself because you got someone else that you're responsible for at that point, right?
Yep.
Or vice versa, you can't bet on yourself because you're about to go into that, right? So you can't take a hard hit because you're about to go into something like that, right? So I think sometimes I tell myself, and I wish I look at it through a different lens, like, hey, I wish I was like, hey, no, I'm bet on myself. I have more room. As my mom says now, as she's 60 plus years old, I have more time. I've lived more than I have more time to live. We at 21 years old, you have plenty of more time to live than you actually have lived, right? So,
Right.
but people don't look at it through that lens. They're just like, no, I'm trying to get this money real
That's
quick.
very interesting. That's a
The money's
different
gonna
way to
come
say it.
regardless. Whatever life you did, whatever decision you made, you can go back to school at any point. You can make a different change. You can get another trade, whatever you want to do. You can learn something new. You can always
Yep.
go backwards and figure out another way. But a lot of people don't bet on themselves. Now, I think betting on yourselves does come with another opportunity. It challenges you as an individual. It gives you, you're going to have to prepare for discipline because you can't do everything everybody does, right?
The money's
You talk
different.
about the Kobe
It's not that
and the
easy
Michael
paycheck,
Jordans of the
though.
world. They weren't hitting the club after the game. They were going back to the gym. They were going to sleep to wake up in the morning at 6 a.m., right? So what type of mentality do you have? So it's going to create some discipline to do that as well, right? So it goes hand in hand, right?
Did that job create discipline or help you in
My
that
first
means?
job?
Yeah.
I feel like my first job grew me up, right? It's like, hey, you're being responsible for a multi-million-dollar store, and then past that point, you have pressure for people to perform well, and you have pressure from the people in front of you that says, hey, you're not really capable of this job. So I mean, you're being challenged from that lens.
Wow. So what made you move?
Move as far as like to my next job.
Yep.
So I think what made me move was that I felt like I was not gonna get to my next, right? So I'm gonna say this: a lot of times people will be in a place, and it doesn't have to be career; it could be anything. You'll be in a place because you're comfortable, or because you think that it may be another level next for you there. But in reality, you have to make a transition that's uncomfortable to get to the next, unlock the next level that you want to be in.
Absolutely.
That's the reality of most situations. But a lot of people stay in the same place because they feel like I'm going to get to where I need to be at being comfortable. But that's not usually what happens. When you get uncomfortable, you get to the next level. And I had to make an uncomfortable decision because I wanted to get to another level. But I knew I had to leave that place to get to the next level.
Okay. And you went to?
I went to this company called Bye Bye Baby. There, I was associate store director there. So pretty much that's like a baby store sense, right? It was connected with Bed Bath and Beyond, and I spent time there really learning how to more about sales, right? Learning how to upsell, cross sell, learning how to build relationships with people because the registry of the baby business is not about they come to the store, but it doesn't mean that they're ready for delivery at that point. They're preparing for a baby, so that's an ongoing relationship. So that was teaching me networking, relationship building, all those different things at that point, right?
It sounds like it'd be different. Like to me, Target, you coming in knowing what you want. Like, oh, I'm going to go get some meat.
Yep.
Or I got to go get some cereal, got to get some creamer or whatever. But like a store like that, I didn't ever think of it like this through this lens that you just brought me. They come in with a registry. They have this idea of what they're wanting.
Yep.
You could actually sell. Like, I assume it's not exactly selling somebody whatsoever, but maybe giving them recommendations. Is that kind of like how
so that's where it came into a level of like you have to have product knowledge. You have to know what you're talking about with these products because you're giving them the options. And just like you go to a car, you got Chrysler, you got Kia, you got all these dealerships out here, you know that you could buy a car from. Same concept in a baby store. You have all these different brands they can buy from. What brand is most fitting for them, though, right?
Wow.
And hopefully you provide that option in your store. So those are challenges that you have there, but you have to get the product knowledge, build a relationship, right? And then from that standpoint, give the opportunity for them to come back, right? Because nowadays, if we want to stretch it, that was like back in like 2015. So technology has changed almost like we're 8 years in from there, but it was up on a going at that point about the online. So now Amazon is taking your business too. It's not just in store. I can sit on my couch in my living room and buy everything from a restaurant. I have to go nowhere. But we also too live in a state that people still want to touch and feel. That's why people still go into stores and try on outfits and figure out what's good for them and what's not. But you got half and half that want to stay at home and don't want to go in the store, right? They'll try it on and send it right back, right? So it's a challenge in itself. But that was a developing area where we were kind of in the mix. We're between the two.
Yeah.
Like, do we want to be in stores or do we want to be online? And now we're kind of like more of an online based than in stores. Most people that you're going to interact with.
I think I would agree as well, but definitely not 8 years ago. At that point, I don't think really Amazon started really taking off, especially at COVID time.
For sure.
That was huge.
It really
Just
gave people the
that
option
was
to be
like
at the
the,
house. Yeah.
hey, light switch, boom, we're in this no matter what, guaranteed now, right? So that's pretty interesting. So you're getting these sales skills, you're getting these managerial skills. I would assume at Target you're hiring and firing people. you
Sure.
have you have assistant managers, you have like different departments
Department
that you're
managers,
helping
yeah.
run. Yeah, I worked at Target for a little short stint when I was out in California, so that's the only reason I know this. And you got like the HR. I feel like the manager was there all day. Like I feel like they were working like 15-hour shifts, 6 days a week, just
It was challenging.
crazy. Did that kind of persuade you to try something different, or did you just think that this comes with the manager like role? Like I'm probably going to work more hours than most people.
I think it comes with the lifestyle. I think anything that you're doing with management or operations at any moment in time can go bad, right? The days are always different because anything can arise. But I think also too, you have to be able to be with a company that gives you the opportunity to give you somewhat of work-life balance, right? And you got to find that. It's difficult, especially in a retail environment, but sometimes even in the corporate environment, right? Depending on where you are. It's challenging to find that mix of like, where can I be at that's going to benefit both my home and work balance? And that's going to be
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that was not a situation because if we want to really top it off, I'm working for the man. I'm not working for me. I'm not working for Michael, right? I'm not working for what my dreams are. I'm not working for my goals are. I'm working for someone else that's going to benefit their company, whoever started that company, right? And they're getting all the assets, right? They're paying me a percentage of what they think I'm worth, even though I don't feel like I'm worth that number, but they're paying me a percentage of that, right? So I have to
Yeah.
figure out like how much time you're going to give them to still be successful for them. You still got to be looking at what's your next, right? What do you want to do?
That's a pretty cool. I've always said to myself that most people need to be able to 10x their value. Like they got to get 10x out of their position. So if they're not creating that amount of wealth, they're pretty much able to be replaced at any moment, right? And then a lot of times, jobs don't recognize whenever you're actually like a 20 or 30, and they're not paying you accordingly or giving you the benefits, maybe to compensate for that non-payment or whatever that
That
may
also
be.
happens when you stay at a place too long.
That stays in a place too long. They're comfortable. You're comfortable.
Exactly.
And then you start having kids, and you're like, oh, I got this great healthcare system. Don't fall in that trap, I hope. So, okay, what is the difference between like those words, like director, manager, supervisor? Is it based on the job, or is it typically something in the corporate field that kind of makes those distinctively different?
I think what it makes them distinctly different is the ownership. So you have more on your plate, you have more people underneath you that you have to be oversee, you have to be responsible for, right? And more people you have to manage, right? And the more further you're away from it, the title gets higher, but as well as like you're not close enough to the person that's really doing the nitty gritty work. So you have to find a way to manage those people without actually being there to manage them, which is a challenge in itself. You're trusting and delegating and supervising from a far distance to hope and pray that these things are actually still moving in the fashion they should be moving in.
Okay. So district, what was it called again? You said you were the manager, and then there was like a district manager or something. That what would be the difference in those two positions?
So as far as like when it comes down to like a assistant store manager is like somebody that's underneath the manager that obviously assisting them run the store, right? Store manager obviously oversees the whole operation. Now, a district manager probably oversees multiple locations of this operation, right? And they have multiple store managers underneath them, right? Could be somewhere from 0 to however many stores that they see to give you, the company. Could be 12, 15, 20, 6, 9, whatever it is. And then a director is somebody that's actually overseeing probably a region or area, or it could be a couple of states, depending on what type of company you're with, to be actually overseeing those district managers in those areas. And that's where, like I said, the follow-up comes from, like, that person to the district manager, to the store manager, to those people in the store.
So is that what you do now?
Huh?
I kind of wanted to guide that. Is that what you do now?
So now I am at that level now where I'm overseeing those different areas in my life. So I've been given the opportunity here to be able to do that.
Yeah, how many? Go ahead and tell us like your position, and then how many stores do you operate? Because I think this is going to be so incredibly fascinating. Can't wait.
Yeah, so I operate 12 stores, and pretty much I oversee the operations in those 12 stores. And I have I have 12 managers that delegate to me, and I oversee their operations every day, and pretty much build relationships with those managers to be able to make sure those operations are going smoothly every day.
Yeah. Do you mind? I don't know if it's too much to give, but what would be like a day in life of Michael Henderson right now? Like if you say, hey, this would be the normal from 6 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock. I'm doing this. 8 to 1, I'm doing this. If you wouldn't mind, kind of giving
Yeah,
us an
no
idea of
problem, no
what a
problem.
district person looks like.
Yeah, I would say somewhere between 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning. I am looking over my emails, trying to set up my day, kind of see where I need to probably go or who I need to meet with. Past that point, could be some conference calls throughout the day that I have to attend to. And then now I'm going into stores, kind of building relationships with managers, right? Kind of understanding like what's going on with the facility, looking at some opportunities that we may have across the board. Obviously, I have to look at my P&L to see what needs to be paid or see what needs to be looked at to be able to operate at the level that we need to be operating at. Also, we're looking at things from afar, like where's our next direction, right? So not necessarily like what's today look like. Okay, we got this manager that are about to go out for leave, or we got this manager that we probably need to work with, or they may not be with us too much longer, right? And we have to let them go, right? We're looking at opportunities of who can we move up to really run this operation to the next level that we need it to be at, right? So in a way, it's like feel like being an entrepreneur of your own business, which is a great opportunity because in a way, I'm learning a lot of different things in these areas of my life to really be able to run a business one day for myself.
That's dope. So you are now in a position where you can say, I need another person to do this instead of, because it sounds like when you're running your store per se, it was just like, there's a certain place at which that store can kind of, it maxes out its capacity, I would
For
assume,
sure.
right? Like there's certainly a place that like, hey, this is pretty much as best we can get, and we can't always get that. But when you're talking about running 12 stores, you're like, how can I maximize this here? Maybe I can move sound like you're maybe moving some chess pieces around even. Could you
For
move
sure. You
managers?
are. You are
Could you
playing
take a
chess.
manager and put him in another place and then like
Yep.
move another guy up and
And you are playing chess at that time to really figure out what's best for the business and figuring out what do you see, right? A lot of things can come with environments too, as well with that, right? What I'm saying, the environment of that store who works there, where the environment around the store is, right? You want to make sure you get the perfect person to run that atmosphere to make sure that we're really moving at the right level we need to be moving. You're
And
exactly right. You're playing
if
chess.
you could share, like, I love the management side of this. What if you were looking at your 12 stores and you said, this store has a red flag? What would be the very first thing you say? Hey, this is a red flag instantly, and I know I need to go and make an appearance or check and see what's going on. Is it always P&L? I'm curious.
It's some opportunities with P&L. I would say some red flags to me is like uh, we don't have the staff, right? So they have staffing issues. Uh, there's some money missing. uh, there's some opportunities with store maintenance and direction, right? As far as like this product being on the shelves, right? It's things being delivered, right? And sometimes you can see that from reporting that we're not making the right proper sales, right? So something's
Mm-hmm.
happening in some of these areas of our store that we're not making the proper sales. So we got to come and see is like, hey, do we have the product there? Is it set the right way? Is it signed for the customer? Do they know how much it costs? How much it costs, right? Because most
Wow.
people like don't really want to buy something they don't know how much it costs because they probably just forget about it, right? Due to how the economy even set up right now, right? Right a low, right? A lot of people are like, whoa, well, they used to cost this much, now it costs this much. I don't know about that, right? So if you don't have
Interesting.
the presented price or the deal that they're really going after, they may not gravitate for it, right? So I think those are the red flags you see that are gonna make you come to a store from a distance, right? And then obviously you also can see from like you talk to somebody on the phone, you're getting a play of what's going on in that area, and it doesn't sound too good, then you're probably going to want to come there as well from that standpoint.
Okay. So it sounds like staffing, inventory. I mean, I feel like those are pretty obvious but for most people, I think even listening to this, that'd be pretty interesting to hear that side of it. Hearing it from you, top down. A lot of people, they are the workers, right? I
Yeah.
think, well, probably 90% of the people even listening to this would be, if they were at Circle K, they're working the cashier. From a person who was being or is a cashier, what would you say that if you were to walk in, you're like, oh, that's the person that's got it, without them having to notice it. What would you say? Like, how could you help that person make it to their next level? Or do you even do that?
I do it all the time. I think the biggest thing is ownership, man. Like, I think a lot of times in life, people don't take ownership. Like, whatever you do in life, right? Whether if it's like, I'm gonna, I guess I'll use in the work scenario, right? This cashier, they're taking ownership of their register. They're taking ownership of their customers. They're leaving their register and they're making the store better, right? In life, how are you going into the environment and making it better? I honestly feel like not even at work, not even with my family, but in life, how do I go into an environment and make it better? You invited me a few weeks ago to an event. I could have said, I'm not gonna say nothing, right? Or I could be like, hey, I'm gonna try to pour in here and give a different mindset that may make people think differently, right? So that's taking ownership of your environment and trying to change the mindsets of those people or change the environment to what you think is gonna be better for the group, right? So at the
Yep.
end of the day, I think those people behind the register or anything you do, let's say you work a corporate job and you just don't even oversee people, but you want the next level. Take ownership of what you do to drive it to the next level, right? People want people that's going to make things better, not worse, or just stagnant, right? It's like, how are you making this better for me to be better? And that's the person I want, because I can work with you and get you at the next level. Because you have something inside of you that you want to do something different. You're going to take ownership for what you do. Your mistakes, your decisions, whatever you do, you're going to take ownership and drive it to the next level.
That's deep. And I know that you said, hey, I don't want to try to make it too spiritual. There is a lot of spiritual undertone in everything you just said. Being a good steward of what you do have, right? Like, there is a lot, and it's not just Christianity. I'm sure there's other religions as well. But the one I think from is that being a good steward of what I am in, and not just so I have a bad attitude, right? Like, I know you go in and you just see that person, it's like, dang, they ain't gonna make it. They in there throwing the chips into the thing. Why do I gotta do this inventory? Why do I gotta, those people, like you said, you're not taking ownership and being good stewards of their own jobs. Like, well, you definitely won't make it past minimum wage with that attitude, with that mindset. And it does have a spiritual undertone, I do think. So that's really good on what you said. And so, what would be the next? Is for you? Is it more? What's the next level? What would that look like?
So yeah, man. So
Regions? Not
yeah, so
regions, sorry, but
yeah, regions.
regional.
Yeah, regions is the next level. That's what I want to do. I want to oversee a region. That's why I came here for that opportunity. The opportunity was given to me to be able to, hey, take this role and we can look at that next, right? So that's what I want. But ultimately in this season, man, like, I really want to tap into like corporate entrepreneurship lifestyle, right? So I'm cool doing that here. And that's why I talk about like preparing yourself for a lifestyle. This lifestyle I live now is very flexible to do a lot of different things, right? Work-life balance is amazing. I mean, amazing.
Wow.
I can do a lot of different things with the work I do and be able to operate in the life I want to operate. So now this is where we talk about me being at Target to now me being where I am now. Say, hey, look, what are you doing now for each change to be able to put yourself in position for your family, friends, and whatever you want next, right? So for me, I don't have a family, wife, or kids, but hey, now I want to say, hey, look, I'm really trying to pursue more of this real estate. I'm really trying to pursue more of these side businesses we see, Turo, Airbnb, whatever it may be, to be able to pour into, right? Now you're trying to get your financial dollars up and put yourself in a position to be able to do that, right? So now that when you're at a certain point, you can be like, hey, I want to work for that company or I don't. Or I actually want to work for this company because they give me the right lifestyle to be able to work from home, be able to go into work, or maybe I don't, maybe it's just only hybrid, right? And now I can do whatever I need to do on the side, right? And keep building that wealth. And now I'm putting myself into generational wealth. I can put myself down to my kid or to my grandson, because it may go to the next generation, as we were talking before when we were talking on the side. And we want to really see what that can position yourself to be. So I think that's where my mindset is now. Obviously, I want to keep climbing that ladder here, but I want to keep pouring into myself, because at the end of the day, me you talked earlier, they're just going to slap a number on the table and they think you own that number. But when you're in the entrepreneurship lane, the number's unlimited, right? It's not capped.
Yeah. Yep. So you actually answered the question I was about to ask. I was going to say, what is the end game? Is the end game to be an entrepreneur? Sounds like you kind of answered that as a yes. but with the caveat of, hey, I want to go higher. I want to see where you almost said like, I want to see where I max out in this
It,
corporate thing.
I
Like,
think it's a little bit of both, right? I think the biggest thing is about being able to put in a position to do what you want to do. And a lot
mm-hmm.
of times in life, we're not there. I'm not there either right now. But how can I position myself, right? How can I put myself in a position to be able to do that? And everyone wants to live the life they want to live. So how do you put yourself in that position? And I think that's what I'm looking at right now. How can I do that? I understand most people who go into the entrepreneurship world 100% fail. They usually fail because they have no background, right?
Right.
Most people don't try to take their 9 to 5 and fuel their entrepreneurship. And that's what we should do because it's going to fuel what we're trying to move forward to. And then get at a certain point where it's like, hey, I can go here or go there. It's the same. It's at the same dollar amount. I can either keep going to both, or maybe this may surpass, or this may surpass. But I have a choice now. But most people are like, this is my job and this is my business. And I really can't move, or I'm going to quit this to go here to try to move this up here. But most of the time, people get stuck because you can't live and build a business. It just work that way.
Right.
So
Or
how
it's
I
too
look
late
at it
to
is like,
do it.
I'm trying to do both. And then get me at a certain point where I can say, hey, forget the regular corporate lifestyle. I'm just going to do this. I can live off this. I feel very comfortable, right? Or I'll just keep doing both, but I can control this narrative.
Yeah.
I don't want to work for that number, or I don't want to work those hours, or I don't want to do that. But a lot of times we can't control this narrative because we need this narrative, right? The corporate lifestyle.
So I got one for you. Will you ever be complacent? I don't like using that word. Let me take another word. Is there a number that you're happy at, or a title that you would be happy with?
So I've talked to my best friend Nate about this a lot, and I feel like no. I feel like every time you get to a certain level, you always want.
And who you? When you said when you get to another place, you always want to go. Are you speaking
I feel
for
like when I get
yourself
to a certain
or?
place, I always
Okay.
want more. And I think another time is when we talk about the network or the group you're around in your environment, you always seeing somebody else do something more, right? So I may tap a new level, then I see someone else tap a new level. And it's not ugly competition, it's more so healthy competition. You're seeing someone else doing something that, like, hey, I gotta tap into that, right? So I feel like there's always something more. And a good example of that is Diddy. Do you think Diddy is at a place where he's like, it's all good? Or do you think Diddy keeps going? I'm
Who
pretty
does
sure
he
he keeps
have?
going.
Like, I always wonder about that.
Even with
That's a
everything
good,
he has.
because he was one of the first ones, right? Like, how do people like that? Because I know they don't have a network of other people that they're seeing do better, so they try to do better. With you, do you have the network? I know you do, so it's an unfair question. That is somebody always pushing you, or are you trying to make sure that you are always ahead? Which place would you like to be at?
I think it's both. It's the mindset of like you don't want to stay stagnant because you've been in scenarios where you feel like,
Thank
hey,
you.
being comfortable is never always enough, or being uncomfortable, I know there's more growth, right? So what is my
Thank you.
next challenge? Because nobody that I know on earth is good at everything. There's nobody I know. There's always something else they can unlock in themselves. And that's that like God-given talent that we haven't always locked into. Or maybe there's another level, right? Because it's like this. Even when I was at Target, I was a store manager, but before I left, was I the best store manager? No, I probably wasn't. Okay, if I was the best store manager, that may be true, but that doesn't mean all my results are great. That means I was just the best store manager. But there's something else within that role that I'm not the greatest at. How can I tap into that? Because even if I try to be the greatest at that, I'm still growing myself as a person. Even if I don't fulfill the greatness of it, right? Maybe there's someone else who has a greater stat than me, right? It's kind of like Kobe. He was a great shooter. He was a great dribbler. But he may not have been a greatest stealer, right? Maybe you look at Patrick Beverly, he's better at that, right? So he'll never be the greatest stealer, or he'll never be at that level, or maybe the greatest rebounder. But how can he get better at that? Just a little bit better to unlock another version of himself within that. And I think that is where we tell ourselves, like, you look in the mirror and you tell yourself, hey, I can do more. And that's where you look at yourself, hey, I can unlock a new version of myself within the same lane of interest, but it's something different, right? Even we talk about real estate with me and you. Hey, I may
Yeah.
know how to, go find a building and make profit out of the building, but do I know everything that goes in this building, or do I need to ask someone else for it? If I got to ask someone else for it, that means I have more to learn, more to lock into. I may not be the greatest at being a carpenter, but I can learn more about it. Maybe I can cut another middleman out, right? But instead, we settle for the comfortability.
Man, that's deep. How many, if you could put a percentage on it, how many people do the comfortable?
A percentage?
Yeah.
I say 75%.
75% of people
I go.
get to a place they're comfortable and they just stop.
I'll go with more of a 70, because it may be a 30, because obviously we don't know everybody in the world. We just know who we see and we know who we know, right?
In our world, I hear.
Yeah,
Let's
in
say
our
just
world.
stick with America. We're not going to have
In
to
our
go
world, I'm
too
gonna
deep
say
with it.
70. I'm gonna say 70. I feel like most people get to a point where they're just cool. They're like, hey, I'm good. Right? I got to this point in life. I'm good. I worked out my time. I didn't put in my time, and I'm good. I still want to be that guy at 70, 80, going to my businesses, checking in, seeing what's going on, shaking hands, kissing
I
baby.
feel you.
Because like it's still more. But it also too, that's like, I'm not saying I'm Kobe or Michael, because I ain't nowhere near them levels of GOATs, right? But they had something different inside of them that pushed them to their next, right? And I
Right.
feel like I'm at a point through all my life experiences that I know there's more, right? Whether that's more in that lane or a different lane, right? I feel like I want to keep pouring in. Almost like what you see Kobe did. He did his time in the NBA, but now he want to pour into the next, right? So we can take it that level too. What are you doing for the next? You didn't have a life fulfilled, right, of what you did, right? You got at a certain level. What are you doing to pour back into the next person that should be at your level? That may not have the opportunity, or may not. And that's another thing. How are you paving the way for opportunity for the next person behind you?
So when you say next person behind you, are you talking about just, it could be anybody, community, or are you talking
It could
your
be community.
family? Because I've noticed that you didn't really bring much into that.
To do what Mr. Haywood did for me at a young kid in college.
Okay.
I can go back to those programs that were in high school. I can go back to a community that doesn't have those programs to figure it out for them, right? It's a lot you can do depending on where your angle is. It's all about you. Or it could be your own family. Maybe it's your son or daughter now, right? It's all up to you where you want to pour at, right? Or maybe that's poured enough, right? Maybe you built a great foundation for that, right? So now what else are you going to do, right? If you're stagnant with your career, you're cool with that, then where are we pouring back in? I'm getting after, at this moment in time, that there's always another angle you can look at. There's always another lens, right? But it's up for you to tap into that lens and look through a different lens and say, hey, I want to do it this way, right? It's almost like you can read a quote today and read a quote 10 years from now and get something totally different from that quote.
I know you do the manager. I know you're good with like working with 100+ people at one time. Do you think that, like, let's say you're one to pour back in, which typically is more of a mindset and maybe a little bit of monetary. Do you think that you would best work with somebody, let's say it's yourself growing back up, right? Like you got a little brother or whatever. Do you think that you would work best one-on-one, or would you like a big group setting, 100 some odd people? Which kind of environment would you prefer to be in?
So I always go like this, right? And I look at it almost like Instagram. There's all these followers that we have that follow most people, right? Everyone's not going to look at your content and get fulfilled and run with it. And everyone's not going to look at your content. That's just what it comes down to. But the couple people that do, they move on and they press forth with the content you gave. So I look at the thing as like, yeah, I kind of would want to work one-on-one, but that one-on-one opportunity may not fulfill itself. It could not. It's up in the air. If you have a group of people, someone's going to relate to what you got. Someone's going to relate to your story. Everyone today, even all the podcasts you do, as long as you do this, everyone's not going to relate to it, but there's going to be couples and couples and hundreds, thousands as you go on that are going to really relate to your message that you're presenting here to be able to push forward to their next. So I look at like, I'd rather have a massive, because some people, different drops will be able to grab. That one person may not connect with you. That one person may not take what you have. That one person you may not be able to meet. You could not, could be indifferent. You may not be able to fulfill it. You may get it a little bit, but in a group setting, you can fulfill everyone at once, and someone's going to take those different nuggets and move, depending on where they are in their phases.
Dope. So we talked about a lot about like self-development, personal development, financial development. We kind of went through the whole gambit here. So on any development in itself is, where's the place that you look? Do you go over to books, audibles? Do you do like a whole bunch of networking? Instead of just asking that, let me be specific. where would you go if you were going to tell somebody right now, this is what I would do right now to develop myself better?
I feel like a couple different places. I mean, if I'm telling someone, I'm gonna say podcasts, um, reading a book.
Specific. Be specific. Like, give me a name. Hit me with a name. Yeah, don't just say the general. Tell me what you would do right now. Who would you go to?
Okay, what's my go-to? So there is a podcast. There's $1 million worth of game. I listen to that podcast a lot.
$1 million worth of game. Cool.
I tap into Wallow a lot. It's very motivational. It's very eye-opening. I feel like it gives you a different lens, right? The other podcast I listen to, man, I'm trying to think about the name of it. Ryan Clark is over it. It's called Pivot. Pivot. I love that one too as well. It really goes in depth into people's life stories and where they came from, and what mistakes they might have made, what challenges they had. I don't want to say mistakes. Challenges, I think, come up for everybody. People can look at mistakes or not mistakes. This is how life works, right? Everyone has their challenges. Everyone meets their self somewhere in their lifetime to be able to get over that hurt. And I think that gives you a lot of those scenarios of how people overcame, and you can relate to somewhere in there. And I think when we talk about networking, I think it's very important to network in general. And this is where we go back to the uncomfortable versus uncomfortable. Most times, and this guy named Charles P., he owns a bread company. He talked about, he doesn't call it networking, he calls it net building. Because a lot of times in networking, you'll tap into a relationship with someone. You may meet someone, let's say we had a network event, you meet someone, you shake hands, everything like that is great. But it takes time to build upon that. It just doesn't take from that one connection that you're going to get what you want. It's the relationship that builds over time that gets you into the position and place that you want to be in. And a lot of times people don't either follow up, that's number one, or keep building upon what may be there. And it's not always for instant gratification. Some do come that way. Hey, I'm going to put you right to my office and you'll be there. And some come with just time. And also, too, we got to realize that as time goes on, our life changes. I may not need that person today, but I need them maybe down the road, right? And that's why networkers just keep talking, keep relating to people, keep going into the uncomfort zones. People that are make way more money than you, and people that make less than you. You don't know how it may turn, how it may change. So I network with everyone because I don't know how I may be able to position myself. And we talked about being in the stores and being able to see ownership of a person and see the next level they're going into. So sometimes you're looking at an individual, you can't see it right now, but you got to be able to look through the lens and say, hey, look, I'm probably going to run into this scenario later. This is something I'm kind of thinking I may want to do, or maybe it's something I may just need to tap into for another person, right? It's not always about you. We always make everything about us. Everything we do in life, everybody's like, oh, about me, I'm trying to go here, I'm trying to do that. But maybe it's for my network of people who I have around me, right? That can benefit not just me, maybe it can benefit somebody else, right? Maybe that podcast I read or the book I read can benefit someone else. Maybe it's not just directed to me, but now I can pour into someone else, right? So it's all different angles. Once again, you got to look at it from.
That's dope. Thank you. What books would you recommend?
Books, man. Books. There's this book about how to be a millionaire. I don't remember what the name of it is behind that. And then
Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart.
Yes, that's what it is. Wild at Heart. Yeah.
That book is dope.
Good book. There's another book. It is called. What's it called? It is called. It's a pretty good book. It is called. I think it's called Being a Boss of Your Environment for My Knowledge. I don't know who the name of it is by. I have to get that later for you. But that's another one. But I think a lot of times in life, man, it's always about like all these different angles that we're given today is great, right? But it's all about like what you interpret and do with it, right? A lot of us taking a lot of information. Oh, that was good. That was great. Oh my goodness, that was fulfilling. But what are you going to do?
Are you going to apply it? That's super dope. Are you going to apply it?
Are you going to apply it to? If you don't know that,
because knowledge. What's that? Yeah. They say knowledge is good. Knowledge is good, but wisdom is applied knowledge. Yes. Wisdom is better than having knowledge because it doesn't matter how many books you've read if you can't apply them.
And a lot
Or
of
if you're
times,
not
a
even
lot of people
taking
struggle
it
with
to
that.
apply.
A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
struggle with that. And sometimes it's about we just don't know how to apply it, right? So we're trying to find the angle to apply it in, right? Sometimes it's like we have that place of like we don't know what angle where this is going. How do I apply it, right? So a lot
Right.
of times you hear people talk about things, and that's what I really encourage people to do, right? Is to be transparent, right? While you're talking on the podcast or while you're talking with other people, be transparent if it's safe in that area because that's where it really you hear the trenches story, right? Like what really was going on with that, right? How did you really
Yeah,
overcome
yeah,
it?
yeah.
A lot of times people don't get that in between. So I get this knowledge. I'm trying to get wisdom behind it, but I don't know where to apply it, right? So that's another challenge in itself. To be like, hey, I got this knowledge, man. How do I apply this, right? And sometimes I take it back and say, hey, let me get a plan with this and figure out how can I apply this to best for my life. That might have worked for Steve Harvey, right? But does that work for me, Michael Henderson, right? Does that work for my next level where I'm trying to go to?
Right, right. Well, I want to be conscious of your time. I know you said an hour. We're
Definitely.
at the hour. But here's what I always like this because we talk about application. I love ending with application because that's the biggest part. Because if you just listen to this and you get a whole bunch of cool stuff from it, but you can't take anything with it, it did you no good. It's just great entertainment.
Definitely.
But if I think you've actually already answered this, but if you could tell somebody one thing that you believe that would change their life that you've never told anybody else, what would it be?
Mm, I would say it's a dual thing. I would say
Okay.
the power of I'm going to say net building as Charles P said it, or Charles Alexander. He said it net building, and as well as ownership. I think they go hand in hand because at the end of the day, we have to take ownership of what we want. Right? We got to be able to like, hey, I'm going to drive this narrative. You can remake yourself at any point in time. You can redo the whole thing over again if you wanted to. But you got to control what that narrative is going to be and take ownership of it and move forward. Ownership of if I decide to do something and it fails. Ownership of if I decide to do something that works out great, right? But how am I going to handle it, right? Because a lot of times we can get over our heads in those situations, right? So ownership. And I think net building is because it's so important. You never know how life changes. You never know who you may need and
That's dope.
where that relationship may take you to the next level. It's
That's
so
what's up. I don't think there's any better way to end it than that. Hey guys, Mike, I appreciate you being on. Any other shameless plugs? IG. How do we get a hold of you? Like, if we want to know more about the management
yeah,
route, SIU,
definitely.
Circle K, like, how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I'm Michael Henderson on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm God1 at 2025. So that's where you can find me on there. Hey, I'm open to always networking as well as I'm going on my own journey as I'm moving forward. I definitely would love to keep building it forward with other people.
Super dope. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mike.